What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Total Online Podcast. You already know who this is, man. Gio Grassi, and I'm bringing to you today Coach Pat Basil from Hamilton College. And we're talking a little business, man. We're talking business and strength and conditioning, customer service and strength and conditioning, how you can better service your athletes, how you can better monetize your own income as a strength coach, because sometimes we get caught up in the salary of what we make at a university or whatever private sector place that we're working. And we forget that there's other avenues to somewhat make money. So Pat talks a lot about that today, and I appreciate the knowledge he brought on today, because a lot of people always say, I don't know how to do that. Well, he kind of describes and explains the process of how he's done it, why he's done it, and who he's done it for, which is basically what you want to do as a businessman. You find your audience, and then you go ahead and create something for them. So go on my Twitter, at Coach Gio Grassi, click on my link tree, and you'll see Coach Pat Basil's books there. So get ready. Line them up, lock and load, get ready to go. Welcome to the Total Online Podcast. I'm your host, Gio Grassi. Today I have head strength and conditioning coach from Hamilton College, Coach Pat Basil. Pat, thanks for joining the show today. And if you could just give a little brief history about yourself, where you came from, where you're at now, how you got there, just to give our listeners a little bit of input, man. But how's everything going with you, Coach?
All's great. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
No doubt, man. I appreciate you jumping on, man. And let's talk about where you came from. Long Island guy, am I right?
Yes, sir. Long Island originally, Suffolk County, South Shore. So he's from the metro area. I'm South Shore, Long Island, St. Anthony's High School. You know, Dynasty area football, not so much anymore. Anyway, so Long Island played at Bryant University up in Rhode Island, college football. From there, that's where I kind of learned strength and conditioning. That's really what I wanted to do. I had 4 different strength coaches in 4 years, which was not great for my development, but I got to see 4 different leadership styles and management styles, and just the whole approach to it was really cool. So I knew, halfway through college, that's what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want a real job for sure. And seeing a college strength program in action, I knew this is what I wanted to do. So I interned with our strength staff when I was done playing my senior year. After that, did an internship with UConn football. And then from there, that fall, I got my first job actually doing both, coaching football and strength and conditioning at Maritime College, which is actually up by you guys. Small D3 school where I got to do both. From there, went back to my alma mater as an assistant at Bryant. Was there for about 3.5 years, and then got the opportunity to pretty much break ground on this strength program here at Hamilton College. And this just finished up year 3 here. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Nice, man. What would you say is the biggest difference going from Maritime to where you're at now?
From Maritime, it's a different it's a different caliber. The NESCAC, for anyone who's not familiar, the NESCAC conference is the most competitive conference in the country, period. Some people call it the SEC of Division III, but relatively, it's the most competitive conference in the country at any level. So we have more national champions, more top 10, top 5 teams than any conference in the country at any level. So in a lot of sports, you'll see 2 NESCACs duke it out for the national title every year, like women's soccer. We just had our rowing national championship. For us, it was like 3 NESCACs in the final 6. We actually finished second in the country. We were the national champs runner-up for women's rowing. Nice. But it was 3 NESCACs competing for, the top 6 spots. So that's the kind of thing you'll see. Lacrosse is another one. You'll have multiple NESCACs. Basketball, I think last time we played, we had like either 4 or 5 NESCACs in the Sweet 16 or something like that. So it's uber high level athletes. We'll get a lot of Division I, Division II caliber kids because it's an elite world-class academics. So It's either, if they're considering like a, Yale, Harvard, or Hamilton. If they're a step too slow for Yale or Harvard, they'll come to us. Okay. And they're not all like that, but we do get some kids that are extremely talented that just want to have the grades to go to an elite academic school so we can recruit nationally. So that's how we get us and the other NESCACs can get some super high caliber kids because of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was going to be my next question to you. Where's your recruiting pool? So you guys basically look all around.
Oh yeah, it's national. We're depending on the sport. It's a lot of Northeast dominant because we're in upstate New York, so we'll get a lot of kids from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Mass, New England. But I think our admissions director said after New York, our second most common state is California. So we're pulling kids from all over. We have kids from Texas and Florida. Kids will travel to come to Hamilton.
Yeah,
and we do have a lot of kids from California too.
Oh, that's pretty cool. It's like the same thing at Fordham. Or like, I want to say teams I work with, it's pretty spread out, pretty diverse. The baseball, water polo, the football team, pretty spread out throughout the country, man. I think it's pretty cool that, we can get these kids from, California, Hawaii, Texas, Washington to come, either to Hamilton or, any other school in New York. It's pretty dope. How far are you guys from the city? How far is the commute?
From New York City, we're about, I'd say 4 hours. We're due north up the thruway. So the closest city to us is Syracuse, if you're familiar with the area.
Oh, yeah, so you guys are deep. Okay.
We're way up there. So if you picture New York State on a map, we're literally in the dead center of the actual state. So about 4 hours to the city. For me to get home to Long Island, if I can scoot traffic, it's about 4.5 hours.
Jeez. Yeah.
If I don't, it's a different story.
Yeah, add the traffic factor. And it's funny because everyone I talk to that's not from this area, they'll look at it on the map and they're like, oh, you guys, it's like right down the street for you guys. I'm like, yeah, right down the street is maybe about an hour, brother. You factor in
for sure
13 million, people worth of traffic and shit. It gets insane, man.
Everybody gets out at the same time. Oh, yeah.
Crazy, man. But all right, Coach, I wanted to talk a little bit about your project that you had going on, the strength training program design manual. First thing I wanted to talk about was, what made you want to, write that manual, number one, and number two, like where have your, programming design concepts come from? Like, where did you learn from? Who did you learn from? What did you enjoy reading throughout your career as a coach, coming up as a coach?
Sure. So the reason behind it was basically I knew I could do it. I had there's two reasons. One, I knew I could do it and I knew people needed it. So it was, what are some of the basics that we know as strength coaches that we apply? So I knew I always had a knack to teach, and that's one of the reasons I got into the field. So I had a knack to teach and coach. And I said, I know I can articulate this in a way that's really digestible, really simplified. And I can really kind of help people, help other coaches, help their teams and their kids. And I know I can write it in a very digestible way because there's a fire hose of information out there, right? Mm-hmm. So you can scour Google, you can scour YouTube. There's, you can go buy the NSCA essentials text is what, 500 pages?
Yeah.
Science and Practice of Strength Training is a fantastic book. It's like 400 pages. Super Training is 700 pages. People don't need these fire hoses of information. They need, okay, what do I need? What do I actually need to put a good program in place? And that's it. So that's what I made. And I found there's a ton of 200-300 page books, but people don't have time for that, especially, small college coaches and high school coaches and interns and GAs that are taking classes and working other jobs to get through their internship, and high school coaches that, teach during the day or work other jobs. People don't have time to dedicate, 20 pages a day to get through super training. They just don't have it. And frankly, you don't need it. What are the absolutely essential things you need to know to write a good quality program to get your team on the right track? And I said, I know I can write that in a digestible way. And that's what it is. And my target goal audience for that is exactly that. Those high school coaches, small college coaches that are kind of doing dual roles, interns getting their foot in the door, because they're going to, they see these things like extensive versus intensive plyos and super max split squats and all these, I even talk about dynamic effort and concurrent methodologies. And it's just oh my God, where do I start?
Yeah.
And that's the idea is here's where you start. And honestly, it's not where you start. This can get you up to 90% of the way there. So I firmly believe that just getting an athlete from, beginner to an intermediate and then an intermediate to an advanced level will cover about anywhere from 90 to 99% of all transfer to the weight room. And when an athlete is advanced, They can squat double body weight, they can clean whatever, they're quote unquote strong enough. It becomes a never ending pursuit of that last 1 to 5%. But I honestly believe that mastering that movement quality in your main movements and getting strong enough is about 90 to 95% it. Even if you want to dumb it down, say that's 80% of the way there, it's super easy to do. As long as you write, a sound program with quality movement and apply progressive overload for a few years, you're going to get at bare minimum 80% of the way there. And for the dual role coach or the young coach getting started, that's exactly what they need. And, it could be as high as 90 to 95%. And then maybe you want to dabble in something like a triphasic, or you want to get into things like depth drops and the shock method and concurrent training. Great. It's awesome. Go for it. But stick to those basic principles and you will milk that for as long as absolutely possible. I say it, maybe even I milk that longer than maybe you should, because I want to get the most out of it before jumping programs, starting to try these flashy things. Yeah. Because who's to say, just because you do something different in advance doesn't mean it's actually going to work to drag out that last 1%.
Right.
So maximize that 90 to 95% by doing a sound program really, really, really well. And that's going to get you there. So that was the idea behind the program, behind the book is, here's everything you absolutely need to know with examples. So that it's the, explaining some of the science and the methodology behind it, but also there's program templates in there. So I literally, main movement, literally a template of how, a total body workout should look, an upper body, a lower body. And then I put examples, how many sets and reps, what percentage, and then I have like an exercise bank for each one, where you literally plug and play. Okay, I'm not sure how to write a program. Okay, it's like paint by the numbers. Okay, this is a number 1, this is a number 2, and you literally pick an exercise and plug it in. And I have them ranked from like basic to advanced. So somebody who doesn't know how to write a program can literally just plug from one piece of the puzzle into another piece of the puzzle and put it together. And I have examples in there that you could just run the example templates until you kind of get a feel, and then you can start playing with your own stuff. So it's pretty much a paint by the numbers, step-by-step guide of how to write a really sound program in a very digestible, I don't want to say simplified, but a very digestible way. And that's probably the most common compliment I get on it. People will buy it, they'll DM me and say how much they like it. They'll say, it's so digestible, this is exactly what I needed to hear. And that's exactly what it is. It's not the fire hose of information. It's that digestible, okay, I get it, this makes sense, let me roll with it. And that's the idea.
I think that's awesome, because I usually get interns who come in and they want to talk about all these advanced methods, like, chain squats, the shock method, using bands on bars. And my thing to them is always, man, if you haven't mastered any of the basics yet, if you can't even sleep 8 hours a night, let's not even talk about advanced methods yet, So I think it's pretty impressive that you actually put your time and, your equity into developing this book for people who, hey, like you said, let's just make it digestible to where the information is not too extensive and it's pretty much basic. And let's say, hey, let's master the stuff. So kudos to you on that, coach. And I got to give you that one. That's awesome.
Appreciate it.
No, seriously, because I always say to myself, I could do stuff like this, but I just never put forth the time or the effort. So you doing that and recognizing the people in the population who might need the information is pretty smart. Business savvy on your end, man. You're a business 101, man. You're a New York guy. So that's, it counts, kudos to that. But that's pretty cool. But where did you develop your own personal methodologies and I guess philosophies of programming and coaching?
That's a fantastic question. We had to adapt to our situation. So okay, I tried a lot. I kind of went through the gambit. I started out doing fairly basic stuff because I didn't know any better. Very powerlifting based, 5-3-1. Because as a young guy, you don't know any better. When I was done playing, I wanted to get into powerlifting, so I started doing 5-3-1, just kind of a linear, basic strength program. And that was, my programs were definitely dominated that way early on because I didn't know anything else. And we were pretty solid. It was a clean squat, bench, chin ups, that kind of stuff. Just a basic, upper, lower, total template kind of thing. I played around with the tier system a little bit, but I really didn't understand it. I kind of just copied the template and plugged exercises in without actually understanding it. So it was, I kind of followed the whole linear, just basic for a while because I believed in it. And when I was at Bryant, we played around with a lot of stuff. We did triphasic. We did, like, if you're familiar with Dr. Pat Davison, his mass program with the 30-30 circuits, we played around with circuits. We played around with triphasic. We were lucky to get, a bunch of Tendo units. We were doing VBT. So I got to explore a lot of these, different things. We did triphasic and VBT and all those kind of things. So I got to play around with a lot of different stuff early on, which was cool because I could see, okay, this worked, that didn't work, or, we did this method and it really didn't work that well, or it wasn't anything special. Or I applied it poorly and we didn't see the same result as I would have wanted because I applied it poorly. For example, like I went all in with VBT. I think if I can give an example, field hockey in season. So my field hockey girls at Bryant were awesome and they were strong. They were strong as hell because we train that way. But I started doing VBT stuff and I noticed a lot of them weren't, especially the freshmen, weren't strong enough to really accelerate the bar. So by the end of the year, we really kind of lost a good amount of strength or in season for those younger ones, though. They didn't really make a ton of progress or as much as they would have because we kind of got too advanced with it. So it was good to see in hindsight, it was good to go through that process of like trying to apply an advanced method to a beginner group, those freshmen anyway, and seeing like, okay, it works for this, it doesn't work for that. And it's kind of that learning experience. So I got to play with a bunch of different stuff when I was at Bryant, and I kind of really learned under my mentor, Coach Craig Buckley at Bryant, who was my strength coach my senior year. So having him as my mentor coming up as a fledgling was absolutely awesome because he could answer all my questions. He knew I didn't know anything. I was coming from, Bryant's a business school. So I went to a business school and I was a psychology major. So I didn't have any exercise science background, outside of studying for the CSCS or whatnot. So to have that, that situation and that kind of mentor to come up under was absolutely huge. And then from there to Hamilton, I had to figure it out because our logistics and our situation is very different. With what we're allowed to do, with the amount of teams we have to churn through, we have to simplify what we do to fit our logistics. And this is something I talk about a lot on Twitter, is our programming is probably 90% dictated just based on space, equipment, and flow. We have 10 total racks, 5 double-sided racks, and then I have like 2 standalone squat stands that kind of stuck in the middle of the room. And we'll jam as many as 40 kids in there. And I forget the square footage, but our weight room is not very big. So a lot of our program is just dictated on, okay, how can I keep the traffic moving? And what I found is there are a ton of programs out there that operate the exact same way. They have 50 kids in a room. They got 40 kids in a room, and they just have to keep it going. So it's cool to read about all these advanced methods and talking about force plates and RSI and VBT. It's like for 90% of programs, that stuff's just not applicable. Like it would be great to run, an APRE or, do force velocity profiling on every single kid, but it's just not plausible for most places. Every high school coach listening to, a podcast saying, man, that's so cool, but I just can't use that. So that's who I try to talk to is like, hey, look, I'm in the same boat as you. Here's how I figured it out. And that's what I try to share and give back is, look, I've had to figure out solutions to the same problems you have. Here are the solutions I figured out, or here's what's worked for us. And that's most of my content is I feel like we found a really, really good way to operate within our logistics. And a lot of other people have those logistics as well. So just being able to share the stuff we figured out, it would be wrong and selfish to hold it back, because it can help a lot of people.
Gotcha.
So as far as how we developed our programming and what works is it's what had to work in our situation. We have a ton of kids. We got to churn them through. For reference, we have 29 sports, 600 athletes. So we're a small school. So that's 1/3 of the student population comes through our weight room. So we're 1,800 kids, 600 athletes. And they all come through on basically a 45-minute rotating schedule. So we have to get 30, 40 kids through in 45 minutes. So what do? It means you have to cut out all of the extra fluff. You have to go bare bones. If you're familiar with the 80-20 principle, the Pareto principle, 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your actions. And that's 1000% true. So our program is basically a walking, talking 80-20 principle. And I found that applies to pretty much everything in life. And if you look into the Pareto principle, it could be as high as 90-10 or even 95-5, meaning 10% of your actions lead to 90% of the results, or even 5 to 95. So it's not just 80 to 20, it could be even higher. And I found that is true of almost everything in life. That is true. That is a true phenomenon. So our program is very dictated that way because it has to be. We only have 45 minutes, sometimes less. And we found that that works, and more isn't better. It's enough is enough, and more isn't better. We can get through in 45 minutes, most of the times less, and have, these fantastic results of squat and double body weight and deadlift 2.5 and all these fantastic things. For example, our softball girls have an innate ability to finish any lift in 37 minutes. That's from warm up to breakdown, including the warm up, doing the lift. They're done in 37 minutes every single time.
Nice. Efficient.
In season lifts, exactly.
Yeah, very efficient. Yeah.
And I'll touch on that next. But even in season lifts, we'll get like 30 minutes. For example, men's hockey will come up after practice, so they'll get off the ice, change, and we'll get right into it. We won't even warm up because they're already dripping with sweat. And they'll finish a lift, in-season lift in like 30, 35 minutes, and that's it. And then twice a week, Monday, Wednesday, play Friday, Saturday, they won't miss a beat at the end of a season. We'll PR our vertical jumps. I'll test vertical jumps once a week. They'll PR the last 4 weeks of the year, just doing 30 minutes twice a week. And that's after doing 45 minutes 3 days a week. And we found that less is more is not the answer. It's enough is enough. And enough is a lot less than you think it is. And we found that out because we had to. We had to be efficient, like you said, but not just efficient. It has to be effective. You can't just do half a workout and say, well, this is all we get. No, you still have to deliver results. You have to get stronger. You have to get more powerful. You have to decrease injury rates with the time you get. And yes, it's efficient, but it has to be effective as well. And we found that effective takes a lot less than we think it does. So that's why the formula is, for us, is 6 to 8 total exercises in 45 minutes or less. That's it. If everybody does that, that's plenty. And that's how I came up with my philosophy and my formula. It was out of necessity. It was out of necessity and just finding that worked. I didn't go in saying we're going to do this and it's going to work. It's like, here's what we have. Here's what we can do with our situation. Let's run it. And we found the results are fantastic. So I've adopted that idea of like, look, by necessity, this is what we've had to do. It doesn't take that much, and it's worked extremely well. So that's how we've come up with our formula there.
That's good, man. 6 to 8 in 45 minutes. You're like tapping into a little GPP as well, right? Like getting a little, it could serve as like recovery, maybe, no?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely the work capacity of it, because you have to keep moving.
That's what I'm thinking about. Work capacity, right?
Exactly. And yeah, GPP, same deal. Supersets, trisets. We'll even do a lot of our assistance work in quad sets. So like, we'll do our main movement, say like a squat and a jump, then like, your assistance movements of, an RDL and a lunge. And then our last 4 assistance movements, I'll do in a quad set just to keep the group moving. But again, to get a little bit of that work capacity in there. So in terms of your micro dosing aerobic capacity, there you go.
Right. There we go. There we go. And that's the way to phrase it, man. That's the phrase that pays right there. But I like how you said it's never less is more, enough is enough, because there have been times this past spring when I had my baseball guys come in the weight room and they just look dead beat, 4 hours in practice, maybe between their own personal BP and actual practice. They haven't eaten anything since 1 p.m. and now it's 6 p.m. And I'll just tell them, hey, look, we're just focused on B block today. Let's get these squats in. Let's do our prep work at the beginning for A block. And then once you're done with your squats, boom, we're out the door. So I think, to your sense, enough is enough. Like I didn't need these guys to hit a C block with some additional work because they were just too beat. It was going to have no return on the investment for what I wanted to get out of them.
For sure.
I got kind of I'm going to have to adopt that term from you. Enough is enough. I like that.
Yep.
I like how you said your methods and your programming and your principles, you kind of adapt to the situation you're in, because I remember being at Fairleigh Dickinson and we had 3 racks I mean, you could call it a weight room if you want. I called it a room in the upper corner of the gym. You know, we had about, oh my God, it was tiny, man. Well, how the fuck big was this room? It was like 1,200 square feet. And we made it happen. You know, women's soccer was, you know, we got to the Elite 8 a couple times in NCAAs. Men's soccer, we won conference with them. I don't think we went too deep with them in the playoffs. With men's basketball, we made NCAA tournament once. And just listening to you talk about how you do things and, you know, how you fit and you adapt to your, what do you call it, your environment from where you're at. I think that's huge. And it kind of runs into, you know, the next thing I want to talk about is culture, man. You know, like I think culture is huge. I always tell people, hey, look, I'll buy into culture 100% more than I'll buy into any scientific bullshit that people put out there and say, hey, look, this is going to, you know, change fiber type. You're going to stay a little type 2X myosin heavy chain if you do this versus this. And it's like, that stuff is sexy. It sounds incredible. You know, people, you know, I always recommend take that with a grain of salt, because you don't want to get too far-fetched into the scientific shit, especially if it's done in a lab setting. You know, you want to always, you know, listen and read people in the practical settings. But how did you like get that culture going, man? Because it sounds like you guys are pretty much dominating in the weight room and on the field of performance from what you're telling me and from what it sounds like and what it seems. But, you know, how is your culture and how do you implement that culture and how do you translate that down to the athletes being at the D3 level? Now, I don't think a lot of people know, but at the D3 level, not much is mandatory as the Division I level. And I don't know much about D2 because I've never been there, but I know from what we spoke about earlier, you know, D3, nothing's really mandatory in the off season. It's kind of like show up and you'll find out who's about it. But how have you installed the culture of this is what we do, this is our demand, these are our goals, and how we're going to achieve them?
Yeah, I know you hit right on the head. It's, you know, it's voluntary. You're going to find out who's about it real quick. Yeah. For reference to understand for anybody who's not familiar with D3, anything in the in season can be mandatory. You can take attendance. You can have punishment for not being there. The off season, you cannot. Or in most Division III schools, you can take attendance and things like that, but there just can't be a consequence. Like you can't cut a kid because they didn't show up in the off season, but you can take attendance. In the NESCAC, you cannot do that. You can't take attendance. You can't tell them when to show up. You could get fired for that in the NESCAC, for reference, so people understand. Yeah. You can't suggest that a kid has, you know, hey, you should really, you know, lift weights, come on up and you can't. No, they have to show up on their own. So how do we instill that? And that is something we learned the hard way. So my philosophy going into Hamilton was everybody loves getting stronger. They just don't know it yet. And I still believe that. But my thought process was if I can get them in the weight room and give them a taste, they'll bite hard. They'll love it because it's something they've never really had. So it's how do we get them into the weight room when we basically can't get them into the weight room? They have to show up. And the way you do it is, one, give them a fantastic experience when they do show up, so they have a great experience, and then to deliver. You have to deliver fantastic results. So 2 ways we do it. One, when they are in season and they get their whole team there, we make it's the best part of their day. They absolutely love coming to the weight room, and that's a huge thing that drives a lot of our It's not the programming, it's not me, it's not the music, it's the fantastic experience with their teammates. That they have fun and they like it, they will come back. Like anything else. For example, if you go to Disney World and you have a fantastic experience, you're going to go back. It has nothing to do with working out. It has everything to do with the experience and the customer service you get out of it.
100%.
So if you make the weight room this fantastic, positive experience, they're going to come back just because they love it. Who cares what you do, or who cares what methods you apply? If they're there with their teammates and they're jumping around, they're having a great time. Now, that doesn't mean we play patty cake and sing Kumbaya. We're training hard. They love it.
Yeah.
But that's another reason that kind of ties into what we do is I don't do things like finishers or crush them or team competitions, because that makes them tired and fatigued and it's somewhat of a negative implication, and we don't have time for it. Mm-hmm. I want to apply stimulus, get them in there, get them trained, and leave with more energy than they came in with. So all of our groups will leave the room louder and more excited than they were when they came in. So how do you drive them to get in is you give them a fantastic experience, and they're going to come back same as they would a theme park or a restaurant or anything like that. So you give them a fantastic experience. You coach them hard, coach them well, help them out. If they have an injury, work around it. If they have, a long-term chronic kind of thing, like I've had this shoulder problem or I have scoliosis, and you help them, they're going to say, wow, I've never had anybody really be able to help me with this before. That customer service aspect of it is fantastic. And they'll come back because they love it. And that's how you drive the culture. It's not about waving towels over your head or slogans. I hate that crap anyway. Talk is cheap. It's about giving them a fantastic result. And the results, they'll love the results and they love the atmosphere. And that's what drives them coming back in. And then you don't have to get them to come in. They want to come in. And this is something people don't realize. People are more worried about methods and, how do I attach these bands and these floating heel isometrics to change the molecular makeup of the tendon. It's like,
yeah,
man, you don't know your kids' names.
Yeah.
And you're talking about that stuff. You're missing the boat. And this is something people don't study business and customer service and how do you get return customers. The customer experience and the user experience is absolutely huge. So before we talk about the molecular makeup of the tendon fibers, make it a place your kids want to show up. Because if your kids hate the weight room, you're shot. You're a sinking ship. So you have to give them a fantastic experience, give them the result. So when they say, man, coach, I feel this working on the field, or I feel so explosive, or I feel so fresh, or we're healthy at the end of the season, the training is effective. They appreciate that. And then they love the experience itself. And then delivering the everyday relationship with your kids, joking around, how's your day, how's classes going, those kind of things. The weight room, our slogan is the weight room's the best party on campus. And I love that phrase because it's a good time. It's a party in there. Party in the weight room is the best party on campus. And our kids feed off that. Yeah. They know when they're going to go in there, they're going to have a fantastic time and they love it.
That's awesome.
So man. That's how you drive the culture. It's not about slogans. It's not about, because how many teams have slogans on the wall? Everyone. How many win? Yeah. Everyone. And how many win? Not all of them.
Not all of them.
So what's the slogan doing for you? Talk is cheap. I hate it. I hate the shirts with the slogans. I hate the words painted on the wall. That's how you do it. Give them a fantastic experience, coach them hard, coach them well, build a relationship with it, and they'll come back. And if they'll come back, they'll be consistent, they'll get the results, and it's a never ending cycle. So that's how we drive this thing.
I love it, man. I love everything you just said, man. I'm even thinking, I'm like, fuck, do we have anything? We have no slogans on the wall. We don't have any fucking words on the wall. I mean, we have a record board on the wall, and we kind of went our head strength coach, Joe Gilfetter, he kind of went like West Side with it. It's like a chalkboard. Mm-hmm. You can erase the kid's name and write your name in there. At first, a lot of people were timid because there was a lot of football guys on the board. But now, the track kids, the cross-country kids are starting to find their way on the record board on, the max push-up test, the max chin-up test. The swimmers are finding their way on the board. The girls were once timid, but now when they saw it was all softball girls, the volleyball girls are like, well, shit, hey, I could jump. Get me on the record board, So it became competitive, and the kids love coming because of that. And I always tell the kids, listen, I don't give a fuck about the record board. Personally, I just want to win. I'm a winner. I come from a winning pedigree. I want to train to win. But if that's going to keep your motivation to, hey, you want to get on that record board for back squat, front squat, fuck it, let's go for it. But just know we got to trade. We can't chase fucking numbers all the time. But I love how you talked about the customer service experience because I don't think a lot of people understand. And listen, when you said a lot of people, coach, I'm telling you, I'm people, right? Because I was like, fuck, I kind of lost my sense of customer service over time because when I was a personal trainer, I knew it was all about customer service. Hey, it's what's going to get the client to want to come back to continue to work with you. It's not the fucking programming. It's the personal relationship and the want to come,
Bingo.
And as you were talking, I'm thinking to myself, man, what the fuck is it that makes my kids want to come train with me all the time? Is it my personality? Maybe. Is it, every kid tells me, man, coach, you shoot the shit. You keep it 100, man. You don't fucking bullshit. I'm like, listen, I'm honest as hell. And I don't know if that keeps them coming back. Some kids love to train. Listen, we got some kids that just love to fucking put some weight on the bar and come every single fucking day. And we got kids who don't, but they come because of the team environment. Hey, listen, coach, you don't like doing challenges. I love doing challenges, and that's what makes us different. I got some baseball guys who, listen, I know these guys hate the weight room, but they'll train because it's a part of the team environment. They love the social aspect of, pushing their teammates, even though they're not the strongest kid on the team, but they'll compete their ass off when it comes time for that motherfucking challenge on Friday. You know what I'm saying, Coach?
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I don't know if that's a part of, hey, this is Gio's Disney World, and Coach Pat Basil has, Coach Pat Basil has his theme park Disney World over there in Hamilton. And I love how you just said it, man. It's like, you got to have business savvy. You got to know what drives the customer to make them want to come back. Because at the end of the day, these athletes are our customers. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
The school pays us a base salary, whatever. The customer is the kid. And if the customer's unhappy, the school's always going to question what the fuck are you doing in there,
Bingo.
Or how you're talking to these kids, whatever it is. It's never about the program, because administration is never going to say, hey, how come the kids aren't running fast, jumping out? They don't give a fuck about that stuff.
Nope.
The sport coach does, but shoot, admin wants to know, hey, are the kids happy? Do they love you? And I think you hit the nail on the head, man. You got to be business savvy, man. Were you a business major in college?
Nope. I was a business minor, but I'll tell you what, having been in business, doing the ebooks and whatnot, mm-hmm. I didn't learn a damn thing in business school that's applicable. I'll tell you what, running a customer-based business and in our weight room I say it this: time is money, and they don't have to show up. So you better provide a great experience and treat it like a business. How do you get those return customers? I learned way more doing that than I ever did in business school. I'll tell you that much. That's
awesome shit. And that's cool that you say that, because I always talk, with our business students at Fordham here, I'm always talking stocks, investments, and everything. And I always tell the kids, listen, I didn't go to school for that shit. I went to school for, sports science. I learned how to invest my money on my own, just picked up something fucking, Forbes magazine was the first thing I damn read, but, learn how to do all this shit on my own. So for you learning business stuff outside of school on your own and applying that in the strength and conditioning setting where people say it's not about business, it's about training, I think that goes beyond miles, man. That goes like to the moon type of shit,
Yep.
If you could win if you could win a kid's, I guess not mind state, but just win them into showing up and talking highly about you. That's awesome, man.
Yep.
Damn. Business 101 with Coach Pat Basil, everyone, right?
For sure.
Awesome stuff. Hey, Coach, I think everything you talked about today was fucking valuable, man. One last question I got to hit you with, man. This is my golden question, and there's a clause to it. If you were not a strength and conditioning coach, what other career do you see yourself in? The clause is you cannot say teacher, because every fucking coach I ask always says teacher, and I'm tired of hearing that stuff. So what else do you see yourself doing, man? If strength and conditioning wasn't an option to coach, man, where would you be? A few years ago, I would say I have no clue. I'd say now if I had to make a switch and I had nothing else to do, I would probably look into something like real estate development or anything. At this point, it'd be anything kind of on my own. Probably either I'd be a real estate developer, or I would get into some sort of a sales job to learn more about sales, with the idea of eventually getting out and doing something with like real estate, flipping rental properties, that kind of thing. Gotcha. All right. Hey, business savvy, man. You got what it takes. You're from New York, that's enough. That speaks for itself right there, right? Yes, sir. Hustle mentality, man. Well, Coach, this is awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for sharing all the information you did, man. And hopefully we can do this again another time. Absolutely, yeah. It's been fun. Thanks for having me.